book I'm talking about today is Divergent by Veronica Roth. This book has 487 pages, and that's not including the extras at the back of the book. Its genre is pretty much just utopian, dystopian future. Its vocabulary, I'd say, is moderate, and this is mostly because it introduces some new words and new phrases and even new slurs. Some of the pre-existing words that we use today that are within the book are accusation, self-indulgent, and tendencies. The significance of its title is that Tris herself is what is known as a divergent, and she'll later on in the book find out what that means for her and the challenges that she'll face because of it. The characters in this book are Tris, or how we first know her as Beatrice, and Four, I'd say, are the two most main characters, and there are some other supporting characters. How they relate to one another, so Tris and Four are love interests and supporting characters. They also have Will, Christina, and a few other supporting characters. The protagonist is, of course, Tris or Beatrice. The antagonist, we later find out to be a whole nother faction, the Etrudite, which I'm not going to give much information on that. Their significance. Tris is, of course, the main character, and the story is from her perspective. And then the specific faction is responsible for many of the conflicts that we see throughout the story. And so this plot summary is that Tris first begins in Abnegation, which is one of the factions of the universe of this book. So this book its society is distributed into different factions that believes in different values. Tris ends up finding out that she is a divergent, which means that she does not specifically fit into either one of the of the 5 different factions. She ends up switching factions from hers to a very, very different faction. That's where she meets some of the supporting characters, and they have to make it through the Dauntless Initiation, which is the faction that she transferred into. And that is the main premise for this book, is making it through that Dauntless Initiation. And then later on she finds out some of the mysteries and secrets that have been kept to her from her own society. And that's basically the plot of the book without giving too much away. My favorite quote from this book relates to the society itself, and that is from Beatrice's mother. She says, "But our minds move in a dozen different ways. We can't be confined to one way of thinking, and that terrifies our leaders. It means we can't be controlled, and it means that no matter what they do, we will always cause trouble for them." What this means to me, relating to the book, is that since they are divergent, they can't be put into a specific box, and this especially leads into the theme of the book. So they can't be separated into different ways of thinking, therefore they cannot be controlled by their leaders of their society. And that scares their leaders, because then they have free thought, and then they can think of their own, and they can't be controlled and put into what the faction leaders wish for them to be. So they can't be controlled. So what I mean for that is, leading into the theme, I'd say that the main themes of this book are hope, trust, and defiance. Hope is because the divergence shows that there is a hope of not being controlled, of human society not conforming to every single way. Showing that they can't conform everybody to a single way of thinking. Trust, because whenever she finds out that she is a divergent, she cannot tell anyone, because of course the leaders wish to eliminate all of those people who can change and go against their way of thinking. And defiance, because she has to not be controlled, because she is one of the only people who cannot be conformed into what society wishes for them to be, therefore becoming that society. And so this work I found is both of the heart and the mind, because it has many emotional aspects, but it also has many cognitive aspects as far as making you think of society and how it could become that form of society, as well as the mind because of the cognitive ability that the characters have to exhibit to make it out of specific situations that they are put into. And so for the closing of this video, the good of the book, I would say, is its plot, because it is pretty well thought out and it does have a pretty good linear action. And so we find things out as the characters find them out, and how it could be presented even in a real world scheme. The bad, I would say, is the character development, because Triss's character and Four's character, they all definitely change their specific characteristics of their personalities. They change a lot, and there's not much character development, because it's almost as though their character traits are changing all throughout the book, and it seems that to be that way all throughout the series also. And then the ugly is, of course, the characters, and also this book can become somewhat gruesome to readers who might get grossed out by blood or gruesome imaging. I would most definitely recommend this book, and that is because of its plot and the linear action, and it is a very action-packed book that will keep your attention, most definitely. I would give it 4 out of 5 stars, and that's just because there's so many potholes in the character development that it's just sort of hard to follow its characters. If I were to change any element of the plot of the story, of course it would be the characters, and maybe even some of the conflicts that they face, because some of the conflicts are unnecessary for its plot. But other than that, I would say that it is definitely a book that is worth the read if you are into dystopian or adventure or defiance of society type books.